I've been denied jobs. I've been asked blatant questions like, do you have a boyfriend? If yes, then why do you, when do you plan to get married? If no, what's wrong with you? You know.
If not, what's wrong with you?
Okay, nobody asked what's wrong with you directly, right?
No, but it's implied, I guess.
Very clearly implied. So in one conversation, this interviewer, he said, say, I love you, okay? I think you're a great fit. But I think you're a high maintenance person and I think you're picky.
No, it's interesting how we met, the other day at the cafe. I was totally not expecting running into you, someone like you actually. So you're an author. You also identify as a founder and chief inclusion officer.
Yes.
You have a firm called Relink, which specializes in consulting other corporates and leaders of the industry in terms of inclusivity. I am very curious to understand, especially for our listeners, what does that mean?
What does being chief inclusion officer mean?
Yeah.
So what we do at Relink is we work with corporate organizations. We actually play an advisory role in helping them create an environment that is non-discriminatory in the most simple and the most layman terms, right? So this happens through a variety of ways for an organization. Of course, there are policies, which are equitable and they take care of the, accommodation needs of the historically excluded groups, the gender, person with disabilities, LGBTQ members, any of the historically excluded communities. And but however, policy is as good as it is actually implemented.
Fair.
And it's, kind of translated into making the lives of the employees better.
That's interesting. Yeah.
So that is the second part of the work that we do. So we help these policies come to life through a lot of culture building initiatives and interventions.
Got it.
For the organization.
Got it. So you help leaders and management of companies come up with policies and also make it an interesting experience for the employees to be around, diverse set of groups and also give opportunity to people who are generally not included. Is that what it is?
Yes, that is in the simplest of the simplest terms.
Got you.
Right?
Yeah.
But what we really work on is to make employees feel belonged in an organization, feel included in the organization.
Fair.
Because it's very easy to feel out of place sometimes when I'm different, to most of the people, when my lifestyle is different or I'm looking different. It's very easy for me to feel out of place. I mean, all of us have experienced, most people I know have experienced at least once feeling out of place in a certain context, and so our work is to help minimize those experiences of feeling excluded or like, this is a place I'm here for a short time. Only because I don't feel that this is my space.
Got it.
So that's really the endeavor that we work with.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? Because I feel like today there are so many people who identify themselves differently from the established men and women, stereotypes. And it's one of those things where I think we all are educating ourselves in terms of understanding what different people are, who different people are, and it's very important to make everyone feel included and comfortable, right? So that's super necessary in today's time. What I'm very keen to understand is what got you here? How did you begin? I know you've written a book. It's called The Hangover of Choices. Where does that factor play in all of this, and how did you begin? Very curious to understand that.
Okay. Okay, that's going to take some time. So
you have all the time.
Okay, so two things, right? One is the consulting work that I do and one is the book, and they are interrelated and yet not interrelated, and I'll tell you how both kind of play out together. So the DI work that I do, so before I started consulting with corporates, I actually used to be a faculty member, an adjunct faculty member at TISS, and there had some very, very interesting experiences because I had worked with women inmates, jailers, and I also did some work with self-help women groups.
Got it.
Right, and that is where the whole idea that the gender conversation actually crept into my life. I'm talking some 12 years ago.
Got it.
Or even longer than that, and so that's what happened. And then I kind of moved into a corporate world, where I was working in the L&D function of a very, very fast-moving FMCG setup.
Got it.
And, and that's where I realized that, it's not very different. This idea that, women are sort of having a back foot, especially when it comes to a certain stage in their careers.
Got it.
It's not on the same footing. And that's where this whole DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI, that's what it's called as.
Can you repeat that?
Came
DEI?
into my life. DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion.
Diversity, equity, inclusion, right? Got it. We'll come back to that. I have a very specific question to ask you on that one.
Yes.
But go on.
Yeah, so that's where it kind of became part of my life. And I felt like, there was work to be done in this space. And the more I got into it, the more I realized that there's not enough being done. And, there's a lot of potential for work.
Got it.
Impact. So it started with a gender conversation. And I had a lot of resonance with it because I'm a single woman. And a lot of times people would tell me that, you are here for this time pass.
Oh, shit.
You are like, promotions and all of these don't matter to you because anyway, you're going to get married at some point. And
Oh, geez.
This
is happening right now, huh?
Yeah, this happened. Okay, it's not happening now because I'm consulting. So nobody's looking to hire me anymore for a job, or I'm not applying for a job. But when I was employed, this used to happen.
Right. Okay.
People thought I was there for, just to do time pass and just to while away my time while I am looking for my parents or me to find the right partner.
Oh, no.
And I've been denied jobs. I've been asked blatant questions like, do you have a boyfriend? If yes, then when do you plan to get married? If no, what's wrong with you?
If not, what's wrong with it?
Okay, nobody asks what's wrong with you directly, right?
No, but it's implied, I guess.
Very clearly implied. So in one conversation, this interviewer, he said, "Say, I love you, okay? I think you're a great fit. But I think you're a high maintenance person and I think you're picky."
Oh, shit.
And that's when I realized what he was actually telling me. Because before that statement, a lot of conversation was around my personal preferences of marriage, not marriage, and, those kind of things, right? That's when it struck me what he's actually telling me. That there's something wrong with you. Because if you are not married, then there is something about your personality which is not going to be a fit for us.
Oh, wow. There... Oh, no. I am just glad I've not been on other side of interviews where I've asked anybody this kind of question.
Yeah.
But I've heard instances of I've had other women, including some in my own family, come to me and tell me that in one of their interviews, they were rejected because they were asked questions around marriage, not to the extent where, okay, why aren't you married? But if you are married, when are you planning to have kids?
Yeah.
So I am also fascinated where with the non-coherent approach towards this, right? Like on one side, if you're not married, there's a problem.
Yeah.
And if you are married, the next question is, okay, when are you going to have kids?
Absolutely.
Does that factor in decision making?
Yes, a lot. It's an unconscious bias. Nobody will say this is it. But a lot of times it does happen. And I've had an instance in one organization, where two things, right? So one is I was being advised to get married because, it would create some kind of discrimination or biases, that I'm not a stable employee.
Oh, so
I am not somebody...
Employers were coming and telling you should get married.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Because, once you get married, then you are having stability.
Got it.
Right? But unless that happens, it also means that I'm a very high-risk person to invest in. That's one aspect of it, right? The other is the married women in the age group. They were told that get married fast. Get your babies fast. Get them done now because, you will have to take that maternity break. And all of this while you're still in a certain age bracket. Because if you take the maternity leave later, then your promotion will get impacted.
Oh,
so
wow. That's specific.
Plan your life knowing that you will go on a maternity break. So don't postpone this idea of business of having a baby. There is a certain age because, at a certain hierarchical level, you may not be able to take that kind of time because you will have a team, you will be more responsible. You may not be able to take the time off for, the maternity break. So if you have to take it now.
Oh, wow.
You understand?
I completely understand.
So these kind of things have happened. I've experienced them. I've had married women in a certain age group experiencing it. And in fact, a few months ago, I'd written about this because we'd conducted a workshop and this question kept coming again and again and again, that which the managers of that particular workshop were asking me that, see, we understand that, we are stereotyping and all of this. But, at the end of the day, hiring a woman who may actually be, who is in a marriageable age, because we know what society we come from, right? Not everybody is going to be like you. There will be girls who will get married and they will leave the job. And there's a lot of time and effort we have to put in to re-find somebody else.
Right.
So this was a very, very practical dilemma they were presenting. So I'd written about this in public forums and all of this. And surprisingly, this blew me.
Okay.
Women who were in the 45 plus age bracket, they wrote to me. And different people said different things. But in a nutshell, the message was very clear that they were being asked if they were going to be menopausal and were they really going to be suitable.
What? Like specifically the employers were asking these women these questions? Oh, shit. Okay.
At least 3 instances. And these are women who have been bold to say it, right?
Yeah.
Now, many people may not ask these kind of things directly. But so when you're young, you have this pressure to be married. When you're married, you have this pressure to have a baby. And when you are older, now that everything is done, menopause seems to be a problem.
So it never stops, really.
It doesn't seem to be. That's what it appears to me. After I put this blew me. Like I said, the last piece blew me.
Yeah.
I said, really? That for me was the first I'd heard it. But apparently it is something that, kind of has been asked in different forms in different ways.
Man, that's quite discouraging.
It is. It's very sad.
Yeah.
So, this happens,
Got it. And this actually reminds me, it's almost a repetition of what I know some of the women are used to hearing at home, especially from other women, the elderly women, their mothers sometimes, where they really are putting a lot of pressure. What do you want to do with a career? Why do you want to get a job? Just get married first, have kids, and then do whatever you want, right? So there's pressure of this across the board, and it seems very discouraging, I'm very curious to understand, you said that this began for you at TIS, right? Where you came across some jailers, and were they inmates also?
Also.
Got it. Is there a specific moment that you could recall where it really sparked your interest in pursuing this?
I was doing a self-help women leadership program for women. That was a self-help group for women.
Okay.
There was one woman who blew me, actually. She inspired me like anything, and she had such a clear plan for a business that she wants to run.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what happened with her eventually because, we kind of helped her at whatever stage. And then, of course, life changed for me as well. But she was actually very inspirational. It was so interesting because she had a very, very clear business plan of wanting to start a catering business.
Catering business.
Yeah.
Got it.
Her food apparently was mind-blowing.
Okay.
And, and all the other women said that, if she cooks, then you can be sure that this is something that is so yummy and all of that, right? And she had a clear plan that she didn't have the wherewithal for it because her husband, that entire group of women were actually the wives of the husbands who were working in construction sites. And, she had no wherewithal or the bandwidth to start. That's why she was part of it. But the vision that she came with was phenomenal.
Got it.
I had never met anybody who has so limited resources, but with such a big vision.
That's so cool, yeah.
And that kind of was the moment for me. I said, I am in a position to do something here for this person.
Got it.
Right? Her dreams are big.
Okay.
Today, she just needs that 1 or 2 people to tell her that, yes, go for it.
That's
all she needed, And I said, I can be that person. that for me was oh my God, I got goosebumps just talking about it. I still remember her face.
I can imagine.
And I said, I'm in a position to do something. If I am in a position, then I'm supposed to do it. It's no longer even a choice for me. It's what I'm supposed to do. Otherwise, she wouldn't have come into my life, to kind of wake me up to this, right?
Yeah.
I believe in all of these things.
I do sense a little bit of spirituality there. Yeah.
A lot of it, if you can see my Rudraksh.
No, I love it. In fact, I'm also very spiritual. In fact, that leads me to something that I would love to understand more. How does spirituality play in all of this? There's one that is a corporate policy, economic side of things, and there's also the human spiritual side of things. How does that overlap?
Yeah, to be honest, and many people who are in this field will kill me probably, but I think what we are really trying to do is repackage things in a new bottle.
Got it.
It's old wine in a new bottle.
Got it.
At the end of the day, what does DEI really mean? What does it really require? It requires that you and I respect each other. We are connected as human beings.
Right.
Right? That one factor cannot change.
Yep.
You are human, I am human. Right? And if we talk about non-discrimination, it comes from the fact that I respect you as an individual.
Yep.
Right? And every single spiritual thinking that I have studied talks about it. And I have actually written a fair bit about this, the connectedness that I see between Buddhism and inclusion.
Yep.
Right? Inclusion requires compassion. It requires that I respect you. And it requires that I remove my biases. Even if I cannot remove them, can I become conscious of them? So that it doesn't overtake, my behavior with you.
Right.
Right? And what does Buddhism really talk about? To me, it's about compassion. It's about the Buddha in seeing the Buddha in the other person and seeing the Buddha in yourself. To me, it's the same thing.
Yep.
I don't see it different at all.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you ask me, this is the connection for me.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Even I'm a Buddhist and I completely understand what you mean. When you're out there consulting and advising different leaders of the industry, which I assume are mostly men, which is why we have these issues, how do you find yourself, going through that process? Is it, do you feel it's lack of education on their end, that they just don't know how to make a more inclusive environment for their employees or people, or is it something else?
Yeah, one is a lack of understanding, right? And it is not coming from usually, right? It is not coming from a negative space, right? It's coming from a space that I have not been informed about this. It's not been in my context. It's not been in my youth. It's not been something I've been exposed to, right? And suddenly I've been asked to challenge those stereotypes. Okay, they may be stereotypes, but that's what I've grown up with.
Right.
Suddenly I'm being asked to challenge these, so where does that, it's confusing. So at one level, I appreciate that, right? And another thing is that there is an overemphasis on profits and business. And while a lot of times, there is this whole thing that, yeah, we want to do it. We know it's good for business. We know it. Theoretically, I understand it. But today, when there is a firefighting situation, I don't have the time to think about these things. I want to first resolve the fire that I'm supposed to put out, because at the end of the day, as a leader or as a manager, I have certain deadlines, I have certain deliverables, I have certain KRAs,
Right.
That show up on my appraisal sheet.
Yep.
Those are more important for me than this. So this is the dilemma that a lot of times I find that the managers are really caught up in.
Right.
The mid-level managers. It's that struggle that they go through. That I understand it's good, but at the end of the day, I'm also expected to, deliver results. And sometimes it is opposing to the result I'm supposed to deliver.
Yep.
And I'll give you an example here, right? So a lot of organizations may come up with this diversity representation targets, right? They'll put up a target that, for this position, we're only going to hire women, for example.
Got it.
Right? Now, the manager is not at all having a problem with that idea, right? But somebody has resigned and you need that position to be filled in like today.
Got it.
And you have the right CV in front of you, right? Now, what do I do? Do I fill in that position with that CV that I have? Because that is going to give me immediate result, or am I supposed to focus on that one woman CV, which I'm not finding so easily in the market?
Yeah.
So it is this dilemma that kind of keeps them pulled in different directions.
That's completely understandable. Yeah. In fact, what I'm hearing from you, the situation as it is in India, I've heard some opposite situations in the West where some companies have overcorrected inclusivity, right? Where it's become more of like, okay, men are finding themselves at a disadvantage because the leaders in the organization just want to push women. And then there are also recruiters who feel like, okay, I have a target to maintain a certain sex ratio in the company, but then I'm just not able to fill that role with, qualified people. So how do you then strike the right balance, right? So in terms of where we stand in Indian context, right? Is there anything that you feel is a general observation across the people you have consulted, and you feel like, okay, if leaders start thinking about this, this could perhaps have an impact across the board?
Yeah, so, there is the pressure also on companies, to kind of show diversity representation. And it doesn't just have to be, gender in terms of women, right? Not just the increasing the women representation. This is also happening, I see a lot in the LGBTQ plus community space.
Got it.
That we need to be visibly a diverse company.
Yep.
That it needs to be there. So I need to have people who are from the LGBTQ community visibly there in the organization, because then that tells the others that, oh, hey, this is a company that is inclusive.
Right.
Right? And in order to accomplish that, the processes that they take on is a bit shaky.
Okay.
Because what happens is that, especially when it comes to, this LGBTQ plus representation, right? They'll want to hire that one or two people, to immediately say, okay, we are inclusive. And they'll showcase this person out to the world, saying we're inclusive, we've just hired an LGBTQ member. And, they make this person the poster boy or the poster girl of the organization.
Wow. Okay.
Because they want to showcase. And for them, that showcasing is a way to invite more. But what you have done in that process is you have actually made this person's identity more than this person's merit and performance.
Right. Yeah, that must have another kind of impact on the person.
Correct. So now you've hired me, okay, for example. Okay, and you've said, okay, I'm going to put you out there. Okay, I'm just very new in the organization. What do? I'm not going to probably say no, right? I'm saying, okay, you want to showcase, okay, because I'm also confused. So you've showcased me to the world, right? And that's all you've done for me then.
Right. It kind of reminds me of the classic reservation dilemma that we have across the board, right? Like, if we have a certain percentage reserved for certain kind of people, yes, it's for them to get the opportunity, but then there's a larger cost that somebody has to bear in terms of if they're not qualified enough or if they're not getting it right?
Correct.
That's super nuanced in terms of just looking at how it plays out in economics, right? I'm also very curious to understand, from what I've observed, right, there are certain people of different age groups that come with different thought processes, right? Like, I've had conversations with people who are from the north, who are slightly older than, say, you and I, and they do have a very set in stone conservative mindset where, one of the guys that I met very recently, who's a relative, said that, a father cannot replace a mother's love. So at the moment a baby is born, it is imperative for the mom to leave everything that she's doing for the first few years of her life to be with the kid. Now, what do you think about that? Is it something that comes up when you're talking to different managers and leaders?
Absolutely. These are this is exactly the point I was making earlier, that there is a certain mindset that I've been brought up with.
Right.
And that thinking has become internalized. It's no longer somebody else who's telling me this, it's internalized.
Yep.
It's become my own. Right. And today you're asking me to challenge that very foundation on which so many of my life's decisions have been made.
Yeah.
How am I supposed to handle that? It's a very, very tricky space, right, to be in. And what we advise is that, okay, that may have been true for your generation, right? Because there were certain ways in which you operated. We didn't have these kind of opportunities then as we do today. The world is changing. the world is changing. There is the youngsters who are coming in have a different mindset. They have a different perspective.
Right.
Right? We need to change to them.
Right.
We cannot impose what were true in our times on this generation. That is harmful to them.
I get it.
That's what we tell them. That, keep it, right? But do not make it sacrosanct.
Yep.
Try and understand and see what you can do to walk that path.
Right.
Right? Because then when you take that step, you will feel that it is different. For example, one of the things is that, your sisters may not have gone out for a career, but probably your daughter and your nieces probably want to have a career.
Right.
Are you going to stop them? Because you know that they are also part of the new generation. So don't go too outside. Look first close within, in your own circuit, in your own family. And you will find that they are already there. They are also bringing those changes.
Right.
Recognize those changes that are taking place in the family context. Because we are changing, right? And then, you will see that is all you have to do even in the workplace.
Yeah.
Don't treat them separate. Because your family is already changing.
That's so true. Yeah.
Like earlier, this whole marriage business, right? I mean, parents would set up matchmaking, all that. But do you hear so much of it these days? No.
Yep.
It's lesser and lesser and lesser.
Yep.
Right? People are finding their own partners.
Yep.
Girls are going out there to study. They are meeting their, partners in colleges.
Yep.
They are bringing that partner home.
Yep.
And they're telling the parents, and parents are okay. That's the first change you're seeing.
Yep.
Right? So why are you expecting that some things are not going to change?
That's true. Yeah. It's important to just, keep an open mind there, right?
Yeah, that's what we say. We say we understand. Yeah. First is to acknowledge.
Yeah.
We cannot reject. Because this is what this person is brought up with.
Yeah.
I cannot reject that.
Yeah. It must be so heartbreaking to be on the other side to receive that rejection as well, right?
Yeah, correct. And, they made to then feel like they're bad people, or you're creating more resistance. So what happens in such a case, if you do not acknowledge, is that we can send them in two spaces. One is they completely reject and say, I'm not going to be part of it.
Got it.
Or they will take the other more dangerous route. They'll become politically correct.
Okay, let's talk about that a bit, okay?
So they will be politically correct. At the face of it, they'll be the most inclusive manager.
Right.
They will be their champions, leading DI interventions and all of this. But the team experiences will be different.
Got it. So they're just ticking off a box.
Yeah.
Got it.
So
they're meeting that KRA or something that their leaders have told them, and
which is worse, no?
Exactly.
So we do not want them to go into political correctness. As long as they're talking to us and saying, I resist, I reject, it is still better. Because once you've taken that stance of being politically correct, you're giving me all the right answers. What do I work with? I have nothing to work with then.
Yeah, so they're being right on the face of it. Oh my, that's such a tough situation to be on the other side, right? Yeah. Where I'm guessing the leaders or the owners of the company have hired you to correct something there. The managers just know how to say the right thing so that you are pleased, and you're like, okay, this works. But then you're getting different feedback from the employees there, right?
Correct. Yeah, so experience tells you that, right? In the beginning, okay, and then you rely back on your intuition and instinct. And that's where the more you do it, there's this book that talks about it, right? Blink, is it called?
Right.
I think so. Where he says that if you've done it enough, you don't even need to do it. You just know that there is something wrong here.
Okay.
I think that's what he talks about, if I'm right about the book. Malcolm Gladwell.
Got it.
And I read it many years ago.
Got it.
We may have to go back and check if my information here is right. But it's the context of this, right? That if you've done it enough, you know it. You just know it, right? When you're looking at a contract and you've done enough and more contracts, you don't have to look at it. You just see it and you say, okay, there's something wrong in this. Then you go back and look at it. So you get that experience.
Right.
And when somebody is being politically correct, we know this person is being politically correct.
Right.
Because it's two good answers.
You're able to just pick it up quickly.
Too good. It's too perfect.
Is there any example or any story that strikes you where the manager kind of like, you picked up on it, but the feedback that you got from other people or what you looked around, observed around, this contradicted that? Is there any story that strikes you?
Yeah, there are many actually. So one, I'll tell you what's immediately coming. We'd done this work for this plant location.
Okay.
And the manager was so thrilled to be part of this session because he was like considered to be, one of the DI champions and all of this. And, so he was like very, very interactive in the session. And then in the beginning, right? And then, some of his colleagues came in later for the session, his immediate team members. And then he stood up and said, see, I'm the most, gender diverse, gender-friendly team in the company. And this is my diversity, diversity team.
Got it.
And he pointed it out to 3 women in the team. And there were about 5 or 6 of them. And the 3 women. So the entire thing was only on these 3 women.
Oh.
Suddenly you get that drift, right? You're starting to get where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
And that's it. And those girls smiled and all of this. But I knew they were so uncomfortable.
Of course.
Because this was not, they did not want to be the focus. Right?
Yep.
In such a big room of 30, 40 people, senior people, you do not want to be in the room being called diversity hires.
Oh, geez. That must suck, right?
Right? And then I said, now I understand. This is more for the optic than actual belief.
Oh, God.
You haven't understood the deep down challenges that these women are facing. You've hired them. You've made them your optics. And not because he doesn't intend to do it, but because he hasn't understood.
So he doesn't understand what he's doing. And technically on paper, he is the diverse manager.
Ally, he got awards for male allyship and all of these things, But actually, he did not even take the time out to understand the challenges the women were facing in the plant.
And did you get a chance to talk
Yeah,
to them?
I did have a chance because I wanted to go around the plant and I said, hey, let your diversity team take me.
Oh, wow. Okay. And what did you find?
That's how I played it. And of course, they were very shy in all of this, But then we kind of said, okay, let's understand a bit what kind of challenges you're experiencing and has anybody spoken to you about these things? And that's when we said, okay, so there's still more work to be done.
Got it.
So these kind of things make it so interesting because, because, it's completely contradictory, right? And the worst part was that the other team's managers were imitating this manager.
Oh, wow.
Because he was celebrated, no?
Right.
So then, okay, he's doing something right. He's being celebrated, so he's doing something right. We have to do something similar.
Okay.
And then we said, okay, we are in trouble.
Oh, shit. They're just propagating the wrong culture, right? And they don't even understand what's
They don't understand it. So we went back and we kind of, fortunately we had many more workshops, with the same group. So we reworked our activities.
Got it.
To get you to say, okay, I may not be 100% true and correct in my understanding.
Right.
Once you've done that, then you've got them.
Wow. Okay. So, a lot of things here, right? This is quite fascinating. Now, it's so good that at this plant with these women and these managers, you got a chance to educate them. But I'm sure there are so many other companies where they don't even realize this is happening, right? I'm sure there will be women who would be like listening to this and like, oh no, I know I'm on the other side of this. And there will be managers who would be like, am I this person? Am I just politically correct? And let's take it one step at a time. What is that one thing that you want to tell these managers?
Yeah, what I want to tell the managers is this, that, first of all, do not resist this idea that you're biased.
Okay.
Because you are. I am. Everyone is biased.
You're saying it's okay to be biased.
It's okay to be biased. It's not even, forget about it's okay. You are biased.
Right.
If you're human, you're biased.
Yeah.
It's there in Howard Ross's book. And I loved it. And I use it shamelessly. So if you're human, you're biased, right? So if you say I'm not biased, then that is the biggest problem you have.
Right.
Right? So first of all, recognize and acknowledge that if you are biased, it's okay. What you need to do is that acknowledge that I may be biased about certain communities, certain groups. Let me examine. Because the second thing is that remember that when I challenge my biases, the first beneficiary of this is not the other person, it's me.
Got it.
Because when I challenge my bias, I am opening up my mind to a newer possibility.
Wow, that's so fascinating.
That is the only thing I'll say. Do not make it about the other person. Do not say that I'm attending an unconscious biases workshop because I am going to support a LGBTQ member or a person with disability or, women. It's not about them first. It's first about you being the first beneficiary of this particular belief and mindset.
Got it.
Once I say what's in it for me and I recognize it and I see the possibilities, then I'm able to open up my minds to newer and newer possibilities.
Yeah, that's super fascinating. Is there a specific example that comes to your mind where this person, actually acknowledged their bias and it helped them more than anybody else?
Yeah, it happens a lot actually. Because what happens is that, we in workshops, right? If we get into a workshop, then we create experiences. And we don't say it's biases. We just create lots of activities and lots of experiences where you start recognizing it. Then we take a break for like a month, maybe a week, 10 days, whatever. And then we come back. And that the idea of that 10-day break between now and then is to kind of help you understand. And we've had definitely instances, where there are stereotypes that are there, that women are capable of only certain jobs or, certain spaces. So I'll give you an example. It's not in 100% relation, but I'll just give you a perspective, right? So in this one organization where we did this whole thing, and they said, what, we really want to hire women. And it came from a genuine perspective that we do. We've done some work around it. We've got the policies and we've got all of these things done. But, women are just not hiring. We're just not making any headway. So we said, okay, let's understand what biases and all of this they went through, right? And after that, when they went back, one of the managers realized that in this plant location, they were not able to hire because the switchboard was very high.
For women. Got it. Okay.
The workplace has not been designed, for them. They were designed for a different, in a different time and a different space.
Right.
Switchboard was very high. And then, then they had a discussion and they said, is this switchboard so high? Is it really needed? It's not needed to be so high. We can bring it down, but till we don't bring it down, let's elevate this position so that the women can stand up and be able to access it.
Oh, wow.
This was the only reason women were not hired there, because the manager said, how are they even going to reach?
So they knew.
They didn't realize this was the roadblock.
Got it. Okay.
They didn't realize because it is not in your scheme, no.
Right.
It's, you take it for granted. I'm drinking this cup of coffee. I'm taking it for granted. I have no problems lifting it up, right? Now, if I have a pain, then I notice it. Otherwise, I'm not going to notice, that this coffee cup is coming so seamlessly into my hand. I'll notice it when it's a pain, right?
Yep.
It is not a pain area. And then after this workshop is when it became, there's a conscious awareness that set.
It became a pattern that needs to be.
It became something is going wrong. So it just one chamko moment. And then this person said, interesting, it's so high. Do we need it? And they said, socha hi nahi iske baare mein.
Oh, wow.
And then they just put a platform for that person to reach. And then they did a whole rewiring to be able to accommodate other places in that particular engineering site where women were able to function.
Got it.
Without unnecessary requirements of these kind.
That's super interesting. Do you have an insight as to how, one, the hiring changed over there? Second, did it influence the productivity in any way, in a good way?
Yes, the hiring definitely has gone up for sure. Women have definitely, a lot more happier to come there, because earlier they were also a bit concerned, that is this place I may hit the glass ceiling much faster. So those things have been broken.
Got it.
Right? So if I was to give you numbers, I think the last we spoke to them about 6 months ago was around, I think, about 10% more women were hired. And now they've reworked their policies a lot more. More than the policies, they've reworked their processes, which is what we helped them with.
Got it.
We helped them with their hiring process to bring in neutrality, starting with job descriptions. Then how, what kind of avenues they've been using, and another thing which is also very interesting, which had a huge impact, was that when we were walking around the plant, another thing that we noticed was that all the imagery was only men.
Wow.
100%. So if there is only imagery of men and a woman is coming in for an interview, she's obviously going to sense it. You're intending to do it, but visually you haven't made that change. So this is another input we gave them. And then they said, we never realized it because I don't see, but I don't need to see, no?
Right.
So then they said, interesting. So then they kind of, brought in some more women in pictures and, in the plant location, lifting, those equipments.
That's super cool.
Wearing a safety, cap and all of those things. It had some impact.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you were there making these changes.
Yeah, we were glad too.
And I'm so glad that the leaders of that organization were...
they were one of the best. And because of confidentiality issues, we would not share. But the open-mindedness, and this was demonstration from the top.
Right.
This was brilliant because in this, the head of the organization and the head of HR sat through every meeting.
Wow.
When we were in the pitching process and, proposals, you understand all that, right? Sharing our ideas on what we think can be done. They were there in every single meeting.
That's so...
They did not leave it to the bachas of the world to say, okay, go find me a diversity consultant who can do this job for me.
Right.
The minute they got involved, then we knew that this is an organization where we can be open. They'll be open because the intent is clear, right? So that intent was percolated down to the organization. It was clear. And then there are those, they are not really there. They want to do it for optics, want to show in their annual report that they've done something. And then, there we are not able to frankly make much impact because they say, come do a workshop for us. Hey, we need the money. Okay, we'll do a workshop for you. That's what we do.
Oh, wow. I'm actually curious to understand a couple of things here, right? Were there any moments when you were talking to... Okay, we understood different managers you spoke to, but let's talk about women who've been on the other side, right? Sometimes women are in the rooms where the leaders are there, where they're trying to bring about change, and they're saying the right things, but the women over there know that they're just saying it. It's not really true, or it's not helping them in a good way. But then I assume that you would have separate sidebars with these women and you would have these conversations where the door is closed and they take a sigh of relief. Finally, I can open up.
Yeah.
So what did you hear, and is this something that strikes you?
Yeah. So we do conversations, right? We are big fans of understanding stories and experiences, right? I mean, when we talk about diagnosis, that's what we love to rely upon because, it's very easy to take how good is your manager, how inclusive is your manager, rated on a 1 to 5. It's very easy to take a 3 or a 4, because in a survey, that's what you get.
Right.
I don't get the story, right?
Yeah.
So we do a lot of conversations, focus groups. And in these conversations, these things do come up. And, as you're talking about it, I'll give you one example, right? Another one where the organization thought they were really good. They were doing so well and, then they were almost going to drop the whole gender conversation because, they felt that the women were not receiving it well.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Or they were not wanting it. So this was what happened is that they put some reimbursement policy for travel, late evening travel. If you stayed back late at work, you could take a reimbursement. This policy was available for women.
Got it.
You take a cab. You don't take,
the public transport.
The public transport. You take a cab. You book an Uber, Ola. So it's safe. And, you kind of can take a reimbursement, right? So don't travel any other way. And they put it, lot of communication was done. And it was everybody was so enthusiastic, that this was a great policy. 3 months down the line, not a single taker.
Not a single taker. Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. And then when they, but women were continuing to work late. So they said there are only 2 possibilities. या तो काम नहीं कर रही हैं देर तक, पहले करती थी अब नहीं कर रही हैं, या फिर उनको नहीं चाहिए. And they said हमारी women को नहीं चाहिए ये सब. And they were almost going to drop this.
Oh, shit.
And then we happened to meet them in some place and, so all of these conversations. I said, can I just talk to the women once? Can I really understand? So they said, they were saying, okay, come to a conversation. And then these women told us, it was a focus group, is that, they are not comfortable asking for the reimbursement. Because if they ask for the reimbursement, the manager is going to say, कि तुम तो reimbursement मांग के तुमको तो not in as crude manner as I'm saying,
right?
कि you will get the reimbursement, right? But when I sign for it, who's the one under the radar? Me. Right? I'm the one who's being questioned. Why are the women in your team working late?
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So I am not comfortable asking. Because when I ask, my manager is saying, don't stay back late. Because that's what his manager is telling him.
Like, don't make your women stay back late and work. Oh, wow.
So on paper, a great policy. But clearly the percolation of it was with the intent and big gap between intent to impact.
Right.
And so this kind of closed door conversation, it was so interesting to hear. And then we went back and we said that, look, policy is as good as it is being done with the ability to really utilize it properly.
Absolutely. I think when you started talking about this policy, it immediately struck me that, this sounds super helpful, right? But then I didn't see that coming.
Exactly. Even the team would put this policy together and not realize that, oh, this is the problem. And then we said, now if you really want to do this, then prime. We need to do sensitization sessions with the managers.
Right.
And understand what are their challenges. Why are they uncomfortable? Right? With the whole safety aspect. Then a whole line of conversation starts. Right? That I'm responsible for the safety. I'm genuinely concerned. Or, I'm setting the wrong precedents in the company, and all of these things, right? A whole lot of other questions, dilemmas, challenges come up.
Yep.
And one manager's perspective was the most interesting. He had a pregnant woman on his team.
Okay.
And he was like panicked because he'd never been around pregnant women. And he really didn't want her to stay back late because he said, if something happens, I am not in a position to deal with this. I am ill-equipped.
What do you mean something happens?
She's pregnant, no? So health-wise, it was his concern.
At the workplace?
At the workplace. That, as long as she's in the office, she's my responsibility. I'm responsible for not just one person, but I'm responsible for 2 lives here.
Right.
Right? And I am not equipped to deal with this.
Right.
I don't know what to do. If something happens to her, slip ho gayi, kuch ho gaya, I don't know what to do. I would much rather वो घर जाए and safe रहे because मैं फिर safe रहूँगा.
Oh, so it was coming from a place of safety of himself versus...
Not safety of himself.
Okay.
But, like relieved, right? That she's safe.
Right.
And not coming from the space that I want to be safe.
Right.
Right?
Okay,
but
I'm
from
glad
the
to hear
space
that.
of, not from that negative space. Like, I will be relieved knowing that she is safe.
Got it.
It's my emotional relief, no?
So he's sensitive towards the situation, which is good to know. Okay.
Right. Yeah. But this was why he was not encouraging her to stay back late. This policy was not getting utilized.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah.
Because he could not outright tell her this.
Right.
But when she came once to ask him, he said, why are you staying back late?
Yep.
But this were his fears, which I think are very valid. He needs to be taught or equipped with situation then, no?
No, absolutely. And, that brings me to another interesting question that I feel like you must face often, or women on the other side, or even managers or men on the other side must be there, right? So there are people who are sensitive, right? There are managers who are sensitive. There are managers who don't have access to you. So they do want to have these conversations with their, women in the company or whoever else they want to, just address some sensitivity around what they're seeing, right? What do you feel is the right way to go about it without, offending or raising any eyebrows, right?
So let me understand this question. Is that they want to be sensitive,
yep,
right? But they sometimes may not know how to.
Exactly.
And what is it that they can do in such a case,
exactly,
right? So yeah, it's also happens a lot. So one of the things that we always say is that, first of all, when you are taking your journeyship on being an ally, because that's what they are essentially being, right? They're being an ally to women in this case, right? Is that we cannot be scared.
They can't
cannot be scared of making a mistake.
Got it.
right? Because if you're fearful of making a mistake, then that is going to be the first roadblock,
Right.
right? So allyship is a journey. There is a start point, but there is no end point to it, and you will learn as you go along.
Got it.
Right? And there will be teams in your organizations, right, who will be aware about it. When I say teams, I mean the HR team or the L&D team or the OT team, right? Reach out to them,
Right.
right? And say, this is what I'm experiencing. Can we do something about this?
Got it.
Right? But you need to take that first step. A lot of times I want to take that first step, but I think the HR will reject it or they will not take it up. Then that stops me. A lot of time these fears come in, that will I be seen differently? Will I be, judged? These kind of things also come up. And I'll give you one example, not so much from the women perspective, but the LGBTQ community, right? We were doing an allyship workshop for an organization, and this person said that, look, I want to be an ally. I do understand there is a person in my family, so I want to be an ally too, also in the office. But I'm really scared that if I'm an ally, two things can happen. One is, my manager, I don't think is so open-minded is to this idea at this point in time, right? And if I'm an ally, my manager may actually not be happy with me.
Oh, wow.
Right? So I'm scared to be an ally because I don't want to be judged. Right? And that's something that came up. And another person also talked, and this was sometimes mine also, is that will I be judged being part of the community if I'm an ally? Will they assume that I'm an in the closet community member? So what am I supposed to do? These are dilemmas, right, of allies that come up. So the response is that if they are dilemmas and they are confusions, then these are fears. Right? We need to first acknowledge what is the exact fear.
Right.
It's the fear of being judged. The fear that, my boss will not be happy and it may impact my promotion.
Right.
It's a possibility, no? So these are fears, right? So that you have to understand and walk through.
Got it.
And there is no other way.
Wow. And in terms of, the women on the other side, or say anybody from the LGBTQI community, right? Were there any moments where you were having a very private conversation and you found yourself super frustrated and it was a really heartbreaking moment for you to hear what they had to say?
Yeah, a lot of times, it does happen that it's very sad. For example, when the 377, the section 377 was repealed and the community was no longer criminalized, we did a lot of research at Relink on, to understand experiences of people when they move. If they've had any changes. And, people were talking about how the face of the organization had put up these posters, we're LGBTQ plus friendly and a lot of pride, colors and all of these things, right? And this person said that, when in my team, he's still in the closet. He said that, my team was making fun of these posters. And they said, abhi kya, matlab, ye duniya aa gayi hai, ye koi issue hai country mein. मतलब इतनी सारी इश्यूज हैं, ये इशू को डील करना पड़ेगा क्या अभी हमको? It's so derogatory, because for you it's not an issue. For that person it is a big issue. Yeah. I cannot be open about who I want to date, right? It's an issue. For you it is not. But that is the level of derogatory statement. Hear it from that, it was very, very sad, and I felt like, I felt a little helpless.
And these are teammates, right?
Yeah, and these are your teammates, exactly. You're seeing them day in and day out. And you know what they feel about you behind, right? And what do you do? How can you have an open and a friendly, transparent relationship with them? I think that exactly, I love what you just said. They are part of the team. But this is heartbreaking.
It is heartbreaking, and there's so much to learn there, right?
Yeah.
And just going back to what you said about acknowledging your biases, it's so critical. I think we live in a world where, inclusivity not just transcends gender stereotypes, but we're also in a religiously sensitive world in a country, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
How does that play out in terms of different leaders trying to make their workplaces more inclusive, or are they working on the other side of the spectrum where they don't want people from marginalized religions, or how does that work out?
Religion?
Yeah.
Religion is a very, very sensitive and a brushed under the carpet space, definitely in India, right? And to be honest, the numbers of, it's very, very rare for us to get an organization coming up and telling us, hey, we think there are religious discriminations here. Can you help us handle it? The fact that we don't get it tells us that, it's a scary topic to get into because it's really sensitive. In this so many years, I've had only 2 organizations proactively tell us,
Oh, really?
that we do see religion as a problem.
That's a
help
problem.
us? I mean, religion diversity.
As a-
We see
okay,
that
got it.
there is no inclusion.
So
We have less inclusion based on religion.
less inclusion based on religion. So
Yeah,
they
in
see,
the team
they want to work towards making
They
it
want
more
to,
inclusive.
yeah.
Okay, got it.
So we have people from different religions coming in together, but we see that they're always pocketed with each other
And you said there are 2 organizations that did that.
in so many years,
Wow.
right? So that's what happens.
Sorry, let's put that towards in some perspective, right? Roughly how many organizations have you worked with so far?
About, I think, 25.
25. So that's less than 10%.
Yeah.
Oh, shit. Okay. But actually, I'm glad that it is at least 10%, so to speak.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So how did you go about,
So what we do, right? I'll tell you what we do, because we know it's a topic that's not coming up, right? We know proactively it's not a topic that's coming up, right? So we need to package it well. So what we do is that when we work with organizations, even if they come to us for a gender diversity or an LGBTQ diversity, we always say that let's work with diversity as a topic first, right? And let's look at various dimensions of diversity, and then we zone into the one that you want to. So we cover various diversity strands there. We cover age, we cover thought diversity is another one that we don't
thought
talk
diversity,
about.
okay.
Yeah. Personality diversity, introversion versus extroversion.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Your right brain versus left brain, so if you're analytical, certain organizations celebrate their analytical people, right? They do not celebrate the innovative or the creative ones.
Mm-hmm.
Or the whole introversion people are less celebrated. I can't think of another word right now. But they're not given those kind of, opportunities. Because, how it is, the more suave you are, you present yourself, all of these things are celebrated. Power dressing and all. Some people are not like that. But that doesn't take away the fact that they may actually be good at their jobs.
Right.
Right? Then there's communication skills. Overemphasis on language. English. The more suave English you celebrated. We all see it, and it's not just India, this is global.
Oh, really?
Yeah. This Asian side, for sure.
So the more well-spoken you are, the better chances of moving.
The more articulate you are with the language of English.
Wow.
Not well-spoken. Your English is articulate and clear, and your grammar is perfect. Accent is good. The more you are that, the more you are considered to be a person of good potential.
Oh, wow. And that is happening at a place where English is not the primary language.
Yes.
Okay.
And we've done some work for allyship for a global company, and we've spoken to leaders across, and many of them said that English is a problem.
People can't speak English, and that's a problem
Yeah.
for recruitment.
Yeah, I mean, if you may be good at your jobs, but if you don't speak it as well and as articulately, then there is some biases that are there,
Yeah.
unconscious.
Actually, you've kind of hit the nail on the head with it's one of my biases, actually, now that I think about it. Yeah. I'm glad that you brought this.
Yeah, so it was mine too, to be honest. For the longest times when I was a youngster, when I was in school and college and all of this, because debates and all this, I mean, English was the way we debated, right? And the more flowery language we use, the more claps we would get. So we were brought up thinking that this is how we're supposed to speak.
That's super eye-opening, right? Like it actually unconsciously, at least now that I think about it, I have filtered CVs in my life or rejected people, at interviews where they were not very well spoken. And it's good to know that, perhaps it is a box that you have to look at, right?
Yeah. So, this is all of these things, right? So we talk about these things and we focus on religion also. Coming back to that, right? Because we say that diversity is a given. You and I are different people, right? And this word, let's celebrate differences, I do not agree with that term. Are we celebrating our differences today? No, we're actually connecting on something common between you and me.
Right.
Right? We met at a coffee shop, we had a conversation, there was something common, right? It was an interest, common interest. We actually celebrated our similarities.
Oh, that's so true. Now that
Right? Rather than celebrating differences. So these terms are very odd, that are so celebrated in the world.
Yeah, celebrate different. No, actually, it's a very interesting way to put it, right? That kind of brings something in my head, which is that, okay, let's imagine a particular kind of a person. Okay, let's say that person identifies as a woman. That person is not very well spoken. That person is also not from, say, one of the metros. She comes from some tier 2 city. In today's time, let's talk about two things. One, what is a likely scenario that she would face if she were to look for an employment at a corporate? And two, what do you think is an ideal scenario that she should face? And let's also touch upon the post-pandemic world where, okay, now hybrid working is a model. I'm not saying it is applicable across the board, but let's factor that in as well.
Yeah, so sure. So, the ideal scenario that she should face, I really cannot answer. Because what's ideal for her and what's ideal for me will be two different. Right? So, that's one. Now definitely there will be biases that she is going to experience, right? This is a story, and this person, this twin group that I'd met many years ago, is coming to mind, and I'll just share also. And there's a whole English language piece also, because well-spoken and all of this is another parameter that you've asked in this particular description.
Yep.
So this twins, right? A girl and a boy, and we were doing some sessions, and we kind of divided the groups, and each group had a team leader, and in one the brother was, and one the girl was, and he was very very the kind who would be very extroverted and all of these things, right? And he just kind of made fun of his sister and that thing and said, oh, I will beat you and things like that.
Oh, wow.
Very silent. It was a competition. I mean, we created the activity for teams to have competition with.
Oh, I took it in a very different stride. Okay. So then.
Okay, I think I have to go back there and explain exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, please do that. Because you're talking about the issues women face, and you said beat you. I'm like, wait, what?
Okay, yeah. So, okay, I'll just delete all that I just said. Okay, so we were in this workshop. We divided groups, right? And the groups, the brother became the team leader, and there was another where the girl was, and they were at the three more groups, right? And the boy was very, very articulate and very extroverted, and she was a very silent person.
Right.
The kind of a person you just described.
Got it.
Tier 2, not so well-spoken, kind of a girl, all of those things. Right? She was exactly that person you described.
Right.
That's where she came into my head. Right? And these teams are supposed to compete with each other. Right? And so he kind of told her that, oh, tum kya karogi? Matlab main hu yahan par. Right? I'm the team leader of this team. You don't stand a chance. Or the sibling thing. But the bias that he was having towards her was very clear, and she was very silent. She just smiled and she said, yeah, we'll see. And every activity that she led, the team won.
That's so cool.
Every single activity. And she was completely unapologetic that she doesn't know English.
That's super cool.
Yeah. She understood, but she was not comfortable speaking.
Right.
So everything that we spoke in English, she assimilated. But whenever she had a question to ask or whenever she had an interaction, she always spoke in Hindi. She was unapologetic about it.
More power to her.
Oh my God. I was blown. I said, now look at this, right? This is twins, right? And just look at that stability that she's coming with internally. And this is what we need to bring to the table, right? So what I advise, and, we also do a lot of workshops with women also. We say that, a lot of times our own thoughts are limiting us.
Right.
Can you examine those limitations? For example, if you're in a plant setup, right, and you're experiencing mansplaining and it happens and, people will explain things to you and all of this, say, no, I understand this. I've studied in the same college as you. I understand this technology. Can we move further? Can you make that one step? You do it once, you do it twice, and people will start recognizing.
Right.
And they are going to face those experiences, right?
Yep.
There's no ideal, like I said. Ideal is different for me, different for someone else. But when I face that experience, my only point is that trust in yourself first. Trust in your education. Trust in what you bring to the table. If you do not trust that, then everything else is going to fall apart any which way. Right? And small things you must do. For example, when there is a leadership meeting, right, do not saunter in casually. It's not casual. There's nothing casual about this. Right? Be professional. Small things, right? They'll come in groups. This is why. Don't do those things. Because the minute you come in groups, you're coming and you're telling people that I need that comfort factor.
Right.
Right? Small things we have to walk, right? I mean, people will tell me, but why should they have to do this? Yeah, I mean, this is the world we are in today. We are going to lead change. If we have to lead change, then we have to demonstrate right from the front, right? That's what I say. So, these kind of small things make a lot of difference. And, did I answer you?
Yeah, for sure. It's super interesting. And one thing I would love to kind of touch upon is that it almost sounds like that because of all the systemic issues that exist in terms of giving women an opportunity, there is an inherent lack of confidence in terms of, just putting your foot down and, taking a stance on what you believe in, right? And like you said, I think the change first comes from within, where she was unapologetic about, her speaking Hindi. She didn't care whether she spoke English or not, and that kind of gave her an advantage, right? What are the things that you feel you want to tell women or anybody who does not identify with the the tropes that exist in the industry or any industry for that matter?
Yeah, this is for everybody, right? Gender no bar here. I think it's, it all boils down to what the whole world talks about, right? I mean, how many people talk about self-confidence and all of these things, right? I mean, ultimately, it boils down to being able to see the Buddha in yourself.
Right.
Ultimately, it boils
let's define Buddha, because I know a lot of people listening to us wouldn't understand what Buddha means.
Yeah.
So let's define that.
So, so Buddha, there's a story, and all of you can go back and read Shakyamuni's story. But he is the person who kind of understood the truth of life and realized that every individual being inherently comes with potential, right? And it just takes for us to remember what that potential is, and a Buddha is a title. We have given it to a person, but as my understanding of Buddhism goes, it's a title.
Got it.
Of anybody, of everybody who has the potential, and if I was to simplify it and give it in a different term, and we hear a lot of this in our philosophical studies, is that man, you are God, but you forgot. And this is the one thing that sums it up.
That's
so when I say that, you're the Buddha already, then you look at and say, okay, I already have the potential within me. I've just forgotten about it.
Right.
Right. And so I just need to go back and remember that potential of mine. And now that potential can be many different things, right? A lot of times when we get something, and I've done this, and I'm very uncomfortable, for example, with technology. And I was given a project where it required me to learn Canva.
Okay.
And I first said, no, I can't do it. It's not my thing. And no, you have to do it. Because, hey, who's giving you this limitation? And when I did it, I said, oh, I'm good at it. I'm not just enjoying it, I'm good at this, And that kind of broke my own limitation. And I have these old ideas about myself. I'm not so artistic, I can't do up a house well and all of these. All of these are ideas that we have, limitations we've put on ourselves. So Buddha is someone who's recognized that all the limitations that I have on me is me, myself.
Yeah, you should definitely, grab a mic and take a stage where you can just put these thoughts out there, because I can only imagine so many people would love to hear these words. And Canva is such a beautiful example.
Yeah.
Metaphorically speaking, I think as humans, we are always averse to change, right? And I love the fact that through this conversation, we acknowledge at least the bias that I have,
Yeah, absolutely. You're so right, Neil, because, I am a person who does this for a living, right? I mean, biases and workshops, one of the big things. Can I say I'm not biased? Sure not. If I'm going to do that, then I've become the Buddha. And am I close to that? No way.
It's always a process, right? Like you said, there's an end point there, right?
Exactly. There's an end point, right? Exactly. So if I go, so the first thing, is to say, okay, I am biased. I acknowledge it. There are certain kinds of people I continue to hold biases against, and I'm aware about it. So when I meet somebody who's in that, now I'm not going to define it, for my own political reasons. If I see a certain kind of an image, for me, okay, immediately stereotypes get built.
Yeah. No, I can understand. I can totally understand.
And then I kind of have to break it and say, okay, you're biased.
Right. How open are, let's define another character, okay? You're sitting across a super accomplished man with an even bigger ego, perhaps a really big wallet, and you spotted a bias.
Oh my God, I do that every day. The men with the bigger wallets and the bigger ego, oh my God, they are boring.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because all they can think about is money, and it's boring.
Okay.
And those people, I don't even bother. I mean, some of them, they may recognize themselves here. If they do, I hope you do. My very good friends.
That's nice, yeah.
But I learn a lot from them, because, hey, I say, okay, these are biases, and see, you cannot work with somebody who's not going to be open-minded.
Fair.
Right? Yeah. So I let it be, because I'm not here to change the whole world. Right. I'm not going to be able to, right? I will say it once, I'll say it twice, and then if it's up to you to take it up or not, I'm not going to sit and change every individual and say, hey, bias, change your bias.
Yeah, it has to be
you to. No, it's for you to change, right? I've highlighted. You've given me a feedback as a friend. I've told you, hey, I think this is a bias. For you to take it or not take it. As simple as that.
No, that's true. Now, let's add another twist over there, right? Now, say this person has hired you to bring about change in their company, and that's the job that you're doing, right? And you've been paid for it, so there's no escaping that room. So how do
that person I can work with.
Got it.
Because I can say, hey, you've hired me, let me do my job.
Got it.
If you hired me, then you are the first person I have to tell, na?
Yeah, and how do they take it?
नहीं सुनोगे तो मैं कहा तुम्हारी टीम को जाके बताऊंगी.
Fair.
And this guy looked at me and he said, I don't think I want to hire you.
Oh,
and
wow.
I said, that is the reason you have to hire me.
Yeah, like I think you're in a very unique position where somebody is rejecting your work. You immediately have a selling point.
Yeah, exactly. Right? No, it's very interesting and brings another one, right? So I have a colleague, a male colleague with whom I went for this pitch meeting. Okay, and the CHRO, he was there,
Remind me again, what is the CHRO?
Chief Human Resources Officer.
Oh, wow, okay.
Okay, a male person in this case. And he was the one who was, kind of doing this entire, part of the whole process, right? And in the first 5 minutes, I realized that he was not looking at me at all. He was only looking at my colleague. So my colleague and I, we know this sometimes happens, right? So I would say something and he would repeat it.
Sorry, come again?
So here's the scene, okay? We are in a meeting.
Yeah.
And
I did that on purpose, I'm just saying.
Yeah. So I'm like literally doing mansplaining almost right now then. So, so this person, exactly as you described, right? Egotistical, that's the word, egotistical and, all of these things, but has hired me to do the job, right? So my first candidate is you, right? And how did I recognize this? He's my first candidate is because in this pitch meeting, he refused to look at me.
Got it. Is there a specific reason?
It's not comfortable. And he told this later. Very interesting. I'll just kind
and
of...
your colleague is a man or a woman?
Yeah, man.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so we knew this. Between us, we have that kind of a chemistry. We said, okay, he's not looking, and we kind of exchanged looks. I said, okay, so I'm going to say the point if I have, and then you kind of repeat it. We have that thing happening, and so whatever I want to make, he would repeat. And this guy would say, yeah, great idea. I've just a few minutes ago said that. And I'm like, okay then, तुमको तो मतलब बहुत दिखाना पड़ेगा.
Right.
I'm thinking all this in my head, okay, and on the face of it, I'm like this, oh my God, kind of thing. You get it, right? Then I give some examples. And then he said, okay, I acknowledge that I'm really not comfortable with you.
Oh, wow. So he did acknowledge.
You're too strong.
Wow.
I'm not comfortable around you.
And he said you're too strong.
You're too strong.
Got it.
Because he kept asking me, how are you going to resist? How are you going to resist? You're going to find this. You're going to find this. And I gave an example, right, of in a workshop for POSH, for example, when we have this prevention sexual harassment, workshops that we do, the ACT. A lot of the men will resist it, and they'll say, but, what is this and all of this. So in one such workshop, this guy said that this is rubbish. I reject this act. I said, first of all, I've not made this act, right? We need to understand the background to it. And I said that if as a man, if you were to just, touch a woman in the office or, unhook a bra, are you going to do it with the CCTV there? You're not. You're going to do it in private, right? So this example I gave him. He said, oh my God. When you made this example, it kind of just blew me because I'm so uncomfortable talking about these things. I said, now tell me where your discomfort is coming from to this CHRO. And then he said, okay, I'm not comfortable with this independent kind of a strong-headed person. And
wait,
then I said...
this person wasn't comfortable with you being in the room talking about these things?
Yes.
Oh, I actually took like that person is not comfortable with that situation arising,
With that too, but even these kind of examples, right? So, you get the drift, no?
Mm-hmm.
And then we kind of said, okay, so first we deal with this, I'm talking with the person you described.
Right.
Still with that person.
Yep.
Right? Is that, then we say, okay, at least you've acknowledged. Now I can do something about it.
Yeah.
And then he said, okay, so you are the person who can deal with this resistance because agar aapne hamara resistance, you kind of attacked it and you forced me to acknowledge it, then I think it's okay.
Wow.
So yeah, we work if it's a person who's not hired me and has biases, I leave them aside. I don't do anything with them. But if you've hired me, then I will tell you.
That's obviously, that makes sense. Makes sense.
Because you gave me these two people, right? These two men. Yeah, that's what I do.
That makes sense. How does, politics play in all of this? Because not to take this conversation on any political spectrum, so to speak, but we do hear instances of really powerful men and leaders of different states and organizations and political parties take stage and, really propagate incorrect ideas, right? Detrimental ideas. How does that factor in the psyche of, people you're dealing with?
So it does have an implication for sure, and again, it's a thing that has to be dealt with very, very carefully because, these political ideologies, if they are very strong in you, then it can have an impact, right? And during workshops, we do see pockets of this having an implication.
Right.
And if we see a pocket of it, we immediately say that, we need to separate the two. Right? Your political ideologies are your own. At the end of the day, an opinion is an opinion. An opinion can never be right or wrong because it can always be contested. Right? Just like your opinion is dear to you, you need to acknowledge another person's opinion. Right? And you need to work with that. So we kind of work around it.
Right.
We neither support nor reject because it's not in our place to do that.
Got it.
Or support any ideology, right? But when we see an ideology overtaking, then we kind of step in and we say, yeah, okay, but it is your opinion. So just like you want to be respected, remember there's another person who needs to be respected for their opinion too. And as long as we are able to come to that understanding, then we can work forward.
Got it.
Right? And to be honest, politics in the DEI space, it's a very, very, very underlying thing.
Got it.
And it's not yet reared its ugly face yet.
Got it.
In my experience.
I'm glad to hear that.
Right? And because it's a different space and people also want to tread very carefully on it.
Yeah.
And it hasn't really created issues. It might create strong mindsets. But then we go back and look at what is the outcome we want to really accomplish for this organization.
Got it.
Right? And we work with that.
Makes sense. Actually, that kind of adds up as well, right? Now that I think about it, because if there is somebody who is extremely on one side of a political spectrum where they are not open to having, say, women working with them, right? Or having any of progressive policies, then they probably won't even look at hiring you. So they are not even on your clientele, so to speak, right?
Yeah, that depends on whether they are, in the, that's correct, if they're in the senior leadership, right? But the good news is that in today's context, the good news is that, organizations are doing it.
Got it.
And if you're not going to be doing it, then you're actually not in keeping with the new talent requirements.
Yeah.
So even if people are politically opposed, they will still do it. They may be politically correct, which is okay, because it gets us a foot in the door.
Yep.
To open up conversations. Even if we get a foot into the door, I'm okay with it.
Yep.
And then we build our way up.
Got it.
To look at it and all of these things. The other question that we really ask, the leaders is that what is the consequence of not doing it?
Exactly. Yeah, that's super interesting.
Yeah, because we always talk about the benefit, right? But we take a different track. You say, what's the consequence of not doing it? 10 years down the line, how will you be impacted? Do you really think you can maintain this position that you are in today? Right?
Yeah.
As an organization, as an employer who's looking to hire new talent. If you do not adopt, because we talked about the hybrid workspace, right? If you do not adapt to it, are you losing out on talent?
Right.
Will you be losing out on, new people? And also, you do not then, if you're going to go with the traditional style of 9 to 5, it's not going to work because this generation is not wanting that.
Yep.
They want gigs.
Yep.
They do not want to be tied down. They want to have, 2-3 careers. They want to have work, pays them money. They also want to have the space of being able to do their own thing.
Yep.
And if you're not going to be able to adapt to that changing trend, you will be the one to lose out
on good time.
10 years down the line. Today you may not feel it, but you will feel this pinch later.
Yeah. That's super interesting, right? I think... Yeah, that's for you. We are always prepared. We got you the glass of water the moment you stepped in.
I realized that. Thank you.
So it's super interesting that whatever your biases might be as an employer, ultimately you're running a business and it boils down to the money that you potentially can make if you do not have the right talent. So I love the fact that you're able to turn around the message in a language that speaks to them, right?
Yeah.
You wanna make money, you're missing out on a pool of talent that exists,
Correct.
But the policies are not framed to, create an environment conducive for them to thrive, right?
Correct.
So it's so interesting to see that, right? And I think if more people get the message that the more inclusive you are, the better it is for you and your pockets and the people around you.
Yeah.
Suddenly the conversation shifts from your identity to now let's work together to grow,
Correct. Absolutely, because see, we need to speak a language and it is a reality, I mean, we also run a business, right? At the end of the day, it is going to boil down to that.
Yeah.
Right? And it is important for us to sustain it.
Yep.
We are not in the, we're not only doing good, we're not doing only this, right? There is also sustainability, without which we cannot progress.
Yep.
It will immediately put a roadblock.
Yep.
All these ideas can remain ideas if there is no way to implement it, right?
Yeah.
So also I was going somewhere else with this. I had another thought.
Go for it.
Which I'm now forgetting.
Take your time. That's fine. That's completely fine. What I'm keen to understand is also the whole conversation that happened at Supreme Court, right? How did that factor in terms of gender inclusivity when you're working with your clients? Because that conversation happened over a few days, and we were getting snippets of it across the board, right?
You mean the marriage?
Yeah.
Yeah. So wait and watch. A lot of people see it's like this, right? So companies that are proactive have already taken care that they are giving same-sex partnership benefits and all of this. Organizations have already done this, right? And then there are organizations who are doing the wait and watch, and they will continue to do the wait and watch,
right? And
and then when it changes, then they will change.
Yeah.
And that's what we say, that if you're really proactive, right? And 377 didn't happen overnight.
Yep.
Before it happened, right? We had already started telling organizations it is going to happen.
Yep.
Right? Already prepare yourself. But they said no and all of these things, right? And then they are the ones then scrambling,
right?
To make those changes, right? And so that's a choice that they make. They will do it. So what do you want to be? Do you want to be leading, or do you want to be a laggard?
Right.
What is it that you want to be? That's a choice you make as an organization, right? And organizations who were proactive, seamless, very easy.
Yep.
Right? And today they are the ones who are out there, sharing best practices and all of these, and you're watching them.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I think it's the leaders in this space who are progressive, before even the judgment comes in. They are, if the judgment is not in their favor or they are going to have to pull back, which is going to be unfortunate, right?
Yeah.
Let's see how this shapes up. What I do want to ask you is one question that we started the podcast with was DEI, right? I remember reading one of the things around equality, equity, and equal treatment, right? I think you differentiate between the three terms, right? I would love to know more about that.
Yeah. So equity is fairness, right? That we need to be fair. We need to be just. That's equity, okay? Equality is you and I are the same. I do not see the difference of the genders, right? So a lot of times equality is that, equal opportunities, equal access to, resources, all of this would be equality, right? Now, a lot of times there's this equal treatment, right, that happens. And people think that equity means equal treatment. And they confuse these two terms, which is the problem. So I will treat you and me exactly the same way, right? Whereas you are a different person, I'm a different person. I come from a different gender, you come from a different gender, right? And if I say that I do not see that, then there's a problem, right? Because I'm negating something which is true to me.
Right.
Right? And so I'll give you a very simple example here. The most simple example, and this happened, and I share a lot about this. One of my favorite anecdotes is that, in this organization, sales-driven organization, this person, the sales head, he was told to hire women.
Okay.
And that equal hai. Everything is equal. We are an organization that wants to be equal. So we will look at, hiring women. So he was not very comfortable, but he said, okay, equal hai to theek hai. And he hired. And he was very used to using this MCBC language during meetings. And when she came in, his only female team member, she said, oh, you must please stop this because it's not comfortable. It's a group of men and I'm the only woman here. He said, look, I've been told to treat you equal. Equality kar rahi hai hamari company, or, equal treatment I have been told to give you. So it's your choice. You don't like this language, you step out. Otherwise, you stay in
Oh, wow.
and deal with it.
She was singled out.
Yeah, because she raised the point. Now you've put her in a position that neither can she step out of the room, nor can she stay inside the room. Right? Because if she steps out, she's telling the rest of the team members that I need to be treated differently to the rest of you, which is not okay.
Yeah.
Right? And if she stays in chill, then I have to deal with this language which is uncomfortable for her. Right? This is the difference. This is not fair. It's not just. Right? But this is the confusion of equitable and equality when these terms get interchanged.
Yeah. That's so nuanced.
Yeah. Fairness is that because of my gender, I should not be discriminated against. That is fairness. I should be given reasonable accommodations. Right? Now, this example of the switchboard, if it's equal treatment, ki, oh, you're also an employee, he's also an employee, bhai, reach karo.
Yeah.
Reach out to it, right?
Yeah.
But she needs that additional something to be able to reach. Right? Without that additional something, she cannot reach. Right? That is equitable. So this difference we need to understand very, very carefully, because a lot of times the people start interchanging and they start saying, I don't see gender, I don't see age, I don't see disability, I don't see any of these things, but you have to see them.
Yeah, no, that's so true. I think
because if you don't see them, you will not create that maternity leave that the woman needs.
Yep.
Right? You're not going to create it because तुमने तो देखा नहीं है ना, but उसको तो जाना है ना maternity. I don't know how many of you understand Hindi.
No, I think
it's my go-to language.
No, you can speak in any language you want. We'll put subtitles.
You will do the subtitles, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
No, that's interesting. I think we all have a lot to learn, right? And
absolutely.
One of the, before we wrap this, I do want to talk about something that also plays an important role in your book, which is the hangover of choices, right? How do these issues that exist and these policies that are not conducive or they don't create a good environment for certain people, or let me rephrase that. They do not create a good environment for everyone because everyone is on a losing end there. How does it impact one's mental health?
Yeah. So, the hangover of choice, I'll give you a little backdrop to, the title itself is that a lot of times, after all of these workshops and, it could be mental health, it could be DEI, people come and tell us that they've had regrets, right? That I wish I had not done this. I now realize that I was really biased towards this person. I'm really having a regret. Or, I wish I had not made this decision in life because I didn't look at other possibilities. Regrets of a whole lot of kinds, right? And these regrets actually become like a nag. They nag, right? They live with you. They kind of continue, because you're all the time thinking, oh, I wish I'd done different. If I'd done different, what my life would have turned out, that kind of a thing, right? And the book is pegged on this idea of regret. And that's with the hangover of choices. It's like a hangover I've had of a choice that I have made. And it's like a hangover that seems incurable, right? So that's the book is around these ideas.
Got it.
And we talk about how this has an implication in your daily life, right? The way I interact with people, my daily coping mechanisms and all of these things, right? It also talks about, sexuality, female sexuality, and the discomfort with being able to express it, because we are expected to be demure and, all of these things, right? How that has an implication. Self-esteem, jealousy amongst friends because I'm seeing somebody else do something, which I want to do, which is also true of corporate people, right? I see somebody else going ahead and I'm not comfortable and I want to be there.
Yep.
The whole idea, how my gender has had an implication in the way I live my life. The character in this used fiction as a mode, to talk about these ideas because I wanted it to be very, very relatable. So this character's gender has had a huge implication on the way she's lived her life.
Wow.
And
yeah, I can totally understand.
Yeah, so that is what I've worked on highlighting. This is, of course, from the woman's perspective. But yeah, the subsequent ones will be from different perspectives as well.
That's super interesting. I look forward to getting my hands on your
Yes,
books.
please do.
This has been so good, right? I think some very strong takeaways, right? If you are a leader of any organization and if you feel like you want to progress, economically, and you want to, make bank, you gotta be more inclusive, right? Because you don't know what you're missing out on. Forget trying to be, the poster boy or poster person or whatever in terms of being inclusive, but you have to be out there just for your own sake. Try to make it as conducive as possible for anybody to thrive in an organization. I think that's such a big takeaway, right, for anyone, right?
Yeah.
Okay, this is good. I am so glad that we got a chance to talk, and
I know,
and you're
right?
one of those guests I know we'll keep bringing on, because there's so much happening in this space. I don't know how things will evolve in the next 1-2 years, and we would love to just touch upon these things and look back at where we stand today, and then where we stand, right? So
Absolutely.
it'll be just good to look at those things, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's wonderful talking to you, Neil. It was such a fun conversation.
I'm so glad we spoke. Thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll keep bringing on more guests for you.